Jeremy Rosenthal joining us. TexasDefenseFirm.com is where you'll find Jeremy. He's here to explain the Supreme Court and their ruling yesterday. Jeremy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're going to have to give us the legalese in all of this. Some of the justices did not sign on to the main idea. They thought, well, you've reached too far. You've answered questions that nobody asked in this case, but it was a unanimous decision.
That's right. So it was a unanimous opinion for the meat of the opinion, which was what they said is, okay, the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment says that you cannot have a sitting office holder who engaged in insurrection against the United States. And what the Supreme Court said was, but that's not Colorado's decision to make, and it's not Maine's decision to make, and it's not Illinois' decision to make. Congress, the U.S. Congress, has the authority to invoke that provision. Those states, you guys can keep them out of your own legislature if you want based on that clause, but you can't do it federally. That was the decision. All 9 justices signed off on that. What the majority said was, well, but let's take the next step and let's talk about the next step. And then you had Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson who said, well, hold on, nobody asked you that. So that's where the rub was, but it's a victory for President Trump at the moment.
So I'm seeing that something like more than 30 states have considered challenges to remove Trump from the ballot. What happens to those proceedings? They just kind of fall off, go by the wayside at this point, I'm assuming.
That I would assume so too. So the question is all right, so now that we have this insurrection clause, what do we do with it, right? So going back historically, you have to remember that the reason for this was because after the Civil War, which is when the 14th Amendment was enacted, the legislature, Congress, we were afraid that South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, these states were going to just send the same people back to Congress that were there before, right? And that had already been a part of the Confederacy, and they were just going to come and do the same stuff. So they said, when you get to Washington, in Washington, we're going to throw you out, right? Alabama, you can send who you want, but in Washington, we're going to throw you out. So that was kind of the idea. So the question is, well, what happens next? Let's say Donald Trump gets elected. It sounds like Congress at that point could expel him under the insurrection clause. But that's the part that the Supreme Court really made muddy, because they said, well, Congress can enact more legislation to do that. But again, that's where the other justices says, but nobody asked you about any of that. We solved the problem in front of us, and that's, can Colorado do this? We said, no, we're done.
Jeremy Rosenthal with us, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Jeremy, hang on just a second. We got more questions for you. But Jeremy, it always comes back, as we talk about this a lot, people screaming and yelling insurrection, insurrection. Nobody's been convicted of that. Not even people have gone to jail. Nobody got shot. I mean, for goodness sakes, who gets to determine what's an insurrection and what's not?
The U.S. Congress, and that's what the opinion said yesterday. One of the concerns from all 9 justices was, okay, look, that's exactly right. How do we determine what was an insurrection, and why do you get to decide this, Colorado? And by the way, how did you decide it? And it turns out that Colorado had a bit of a mini trial on it, where they found that there was an insurrection, but that's what the Supreme Court said, but we can't have 50 states doing that. Right. We give you, the states, some authority when it comes to sending your electors here, but that's about it. So that's exactly the question. Now, Trump is going to stand trial for the January 6th case. And so it'll be interesting to see if he's convicted there, what the position is with the 14th Amendment.
Unless he has immunity, and that's really what he's asking for. He feels like as president, as a sitting president, he would have immunity from prosecution.
Another fascinating question. So the immunity claim is really big. It's a really big separation of powers question. When we look at that, we have to ask ourselves, okay, where's the line? Can the president of the United States just say, I'm not going to pay taxes because I'm the president? I don't think we would let them get away with that, right? So that's one part of the immunity. And then let's say you wanted to prosecute, let's say Joe Biden loses, and then can you prosecute him because you didn't like how he handled the border, because he took a constitutional oath, and we're now saying that, well, you didn't protect the border. So, okay, where's that line of presidential immunity? I don't think I would be pretty surprised if the justices gave Trump a win on that one. I think that I think that that's gonna be disappointing for him, the same way that this was a victory on the presidential ballot.
Jeremy Rosenthal, you'll find him at texasdefensefirm.com. Jeremy, thank you so much. Great information.
Thank you, sir.